What's driving your vote is this?
This was $127, and a year and a half ago, it would have been $75, $80.
He feels let down by Democrats in Washington.
I'm a staunch independent, but it's been going to one direction lately because they don't care about me.
Gas prices are absurd.
But Ryan Farmer says Democrats are not to blame for the struggling economy. He's supporting Luria.
I don't care who's president, the gas prices are going to be expensive. That's just the way it is right now.
And meet Optimus. It's Tesla's new humanoid robot that one day could be on the market. We'll show you what Optimus can do. That's coming up.
And now CNN has learned the Biden administration is considering how to respond to a range of potential scenarios, including the grim possibility of Russia turning to nuclear weapons.
This is a measure of how seriously the U.S. is taking the possibility that Vladimir Putin escalates the war in Ukraine, even to the extent of using nuclear weapons. Coming up next, CNN has identified the woman who allegedly helped fly migrants from Texas to Martha's Vineyard. What we're learning now about those flights just ahead. New reporting, CNN has now identified the woman accused of helping arrange those flights of migrants from Texas all the way to Martha's Vineyard.
Her name is Perla Huerta. The New York Times reports that she is a former Army counterintelligence officer. Our Ed Lavandera joins us now with more on this. What can you tell us about not only her background, how she came to be a part of this? There are many more questions, even Ed, about whether the way that this was funded and the authority under which it was done was legal.
Right. There's so many questions still swirling around this flight that took about 50 Venezuelan migrants from San Antonio several weeks ago to Martha's Vineyard. This was a flight that was carried out without the knowledge, really, of state officials here in Texas at the behest of Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. But as you mentioned, we've been able to identify what we believe is the main person on the ground there who was recruiting migrants to get on these flights to Martha's Vineyard. It's a woman by the name of Perla Huerta, as you mentioned. She served more than 20 years in the U.S. Army, was discharged back in August, and reached the level of Master Sergeant. She served in a counterintelligence unit serving in Iraq and Afghanistan. We understand, according to various people that we've spoken to, that the migrants were aware of this military background. In fact, we spoke with one migrant who was crucial in the role of helping recruit migrants to get on that flight. And this migrant told us several weeks ago that he was lured by Perla with the offers of clothing, food, and a place to stay in exchange for helping recruit other migrants and to gain the trust of other migrants to get on those flights to Florida, to Martha's Vineyard. Now, we understand that Perla is still kind of a mysterious figure at this point. We have made attempts for the last several weeks to reach her. Our phone calls to her have gone unanswered. We've knocked on her door on her home. We've tried this for weeks without any result in being able to get in touch with her. And remember also, Jim and Poppy, that there is a criminal investigation underway with the San Antonio Sheriff's Department that is trying to gather more information as to exactly how these flights came together. And they say there's a possibility of human trafficking criminal charges that could be filed in all of this. Wow. Jim and Poppy?
So many more threads, much more to come, it sounds like, Ed Lavandera. Thank you, though, for that update. Well, still to come for us this hour, as Ukrainian forces advance in eastern Ukraine, the United States is now considering how to respond to a possible escalation, including Russia's potential use of nuclear weapons in Ukraine.
The U.S. is developing contingency plans to prepare for the possibility that Russian President Putin escalates the war. A particular concern, the potential use of tactical nuclear weapons, battlefield nuclear weapons, or also what one source described to me as a nuclear display. That is, a military strike on the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, or using a tactical nuclear weapon away from populated areas in what one source described as a show of bravado. The concerns, Poppy, are real.
Still to come, the midterm elections are just 36 days away. We're going to take a closer look at where Latino voters stand and what they want to hear from the candidates ahead. 36 days until the midterm elections, and we're going to take a closer look at Latino voters who make up the nation's largest minority voting bloc. A new NBC News Telemundo poll finds some of them are changing which party they support, a shift that could determine who takes control of Congress later after next month's vote. That's now backed up by a new NBC News Telemundo nationwide survey of Latino voters, showing support for a Republican-controlled Congress jumped 5 points in just the past 2 years.
All right, everybody, deep breath, because we are now just over a month, 36 days out to be exact from the midterm elections, and new NBC News polling comes with warning signs for Democrats. Our NBC News and Telemundo national survey finds Republicans, they're gaining ground with a key group that is generally reliable for Democrats, Latino voters.
John Fetterman supports decriminalizing dangerous drugs like fentanyl and heroin. And Fetterman supports creating heroin injection sites in our neighborhoods.
Fetterman's ideas are radical, deadly, and wrong.
2 years ago, most families could afford to fill this up. But now, it's more like this. And that's concerning for North Carolina families. You're being forced to make hard choices because Joe Biden made bad decisions.
You note that Joe Biden at the end of the Ted Budd ad in North Carolina. Republicans are running a pretty traditional midterm strategy. Crime and immigration, and then inflation, trying to tie every Democrat to the president. Ahead for us, new details on the woman who allegedly helped arrange those migrant flights from Texas to Martha's Vineyard.
CNN has also learned the U.S. is looking at the potential response for a range of scenarios, including the use of tactical nuclear weapons. Well, we know that, right? Cheaters never win, winners never cheat, winners never cheat themselves. Oh, but enter a fishing competition this weekend. The shame, the smell. This story has it all. Don't go anywhere.
We got weights and here we go!
So the midterm elections are now just 5 weeks away. There's new polling that suggests the Democrats may be having trouble turning out a very crucial demographic. That's coming up. Potential warning signs for Democrats ahead of the midterms. New polling suggests that black voters, who are considered reliably Democratic, are less so going into November. According to CNN's Harry Enton, 74% of black voters say they support Democrats in congressional races. In 2020, that number was 84% of black voters, and in 2018, it was 85%. Why are black voters less supportive of Democrats now than they have been in the past?
I'm going to share a profound piece of political insight with you, Allison. When it rains, everybody gets wet. The highest inflation in 40 years, it's not surprising that Democratic support is likely to erode among virtually every constituency, particularly constituencies like black families, many black families that are operating without much of an economic cushion or margin. They are more directly affected by inflation. There isn't signs of a profound values divide or a movement toward Republican on values, abortion, guns, democracy. When the party in power doesn't deliver an economic performance that most voters support, this is what you see pretty much across the board. But what you've got essentially is when you have so many voters saying they're dissatisfied with the economy. In fact, there was polling done for the NAACP by a Democratic firm, Hit Strategies, that came out last week, in which 75% of black voters said their lives had not improved since Biden took office. I mean, that's the kind of thing that gives downward pressure essentially across the board. Turnout may also be an issue as well.
Okay, something fishy was going on at a competitive fishing tournament this weekend. We have details on this scandal next.